guys, Mary Keeper here with Kenai Peninsula Mental Health. As promised, I am working to put a little bit more content out there, and so I've been thinking, now that we are a few weeks into the new year, that I wanted to share some thoughts. There's a reoccurring theme that keeps coming up in many of my sessions, which is around change, and essentially why it is so dang hard to create change, because it really is. You know, the New Year's, I think we tend to make resolutions and we have these big ideas around things that we want to accomplish. And oftentimes we get a few weeks into the year and we realize that our great plans have fallen to the wayside, and, you know, we beat up on ourselves and we're like, I'm such a slacker. But the reality is you are not a slacker. I am not a slacker. It is challenging to make change, and it's challenging because there are things that are happening on a neurobiological level, things that are actually happening in the structure of the brain that make it really challenging sometimes. So I'm going to break it down the same way that I do for my clients here in the office. I talk about how so many times a day we have an opportunity to either we end up at a T in the road and we have the chance to either turn left or we have the chance to turn right. And what I find is that when one picks a certain path over and over and over again, what's happening in the structure of the brain is that that neural pathway that goes to the left, for example, begins to get grooved out. And over time, it becomes deeper and deeper and deeper, so that it almost becomes like a bend in the river. It's not as though you even have a choice. You just kind of get caught up in the momentum and you go down that neural pathway because it is deeply grooved and easy to take that path. Whereas the other path, the option to go right, over time, that neural pathway gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So what you have is like this huge neural pathway where you're like, I'm going that way, and this teeny tiny little neural pathway, which you're going to have to bushwhack if you're going to make a different decision. So that is why in time it becomes very hard to change a pattern of behavior, because that pattern is in fact ingrained into your brain. What I will say is that the brain is incredible. It is changeable and pliable, and you can learn new things. You can teach an old dog new tricks, turns out. It's challenging and it takes effort and energy and focus, but it can be done, and it's incredibly rewarding. And this is what happens when you begin to make different decisions. So if you've got your T in the road and you've got your big old fatty neural pathway and your teeny tiny neural pathway that you have to bushwhack, when you can make a different choice, what happens is that this big neural pathway gets a tiny bit smaller and this little neural pathway gets a little bit bigger. And over time, you get this shift that occurs, which is how you can create a new neural pathway and a new way of being, a new pattern of relating, or whatever it is that you're trying to shift. So what I will say to you is that this process is certainly challenging. It will not be perfect. It never is, but that's okay, because there's really so much growth and so much growing room when we realize that we're starting to go down the neural pathway, the path that we don't really want to take, and we reel it in and we make a different decision. That's where a ton of growing really happens. And the more you can do that, the easier and easier and easier it gets to make a different choice, a decision that is ultimately more consistent with the choice that you want to be making. So whether you are someone out there that's looking at this new year 3 weeks in going, I was supposed to be going to the gym and I am just not making it happen, I will say keep trying to make a different choice. And every time you make a different choice, that neural pathway is going to get stronger and it's going to get easier. Or whether you are a parent who, you know, resolved to keep your cool with your kid this year and it just has not been going well, slow your roll, back up, and when you mess up, take that to your kid and say, you know, I'm so sorry. Mama is trying to do it better and I kind of lost my mind and I really apologize for that, because there's such great growing ground in that space, not only for you, but also for your child in that situation, because then you're modeling for them what it looks like to accept responsibility when you're wrong and make apologies and repair that relationship and make an effort to do it differently. So be kind with yourself, be patient with yourself, and keep fighting the good fight. I know that you can make the changes you want to make. So if you want to hear a little bit more about this or any other topics of conversation that you're interested in learning more about, feel free to, you can shoot me an email at maryk@kpmhalaska.com. You can leave a message here on this video, or you can look us up on the internet, which is www.kpmhalaska.com. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Take care, you guys.